Hello, I'm Conrad Bain. Tonight, we're starting a special two-part show on a very sensitive and important subject. Now, we urge families, children, and parents alike to watch both of these informative episodes and then to discuss the problem presented, which is of deep concern to all of us.
It is the year 2472, and the Earth has suffered a great calamity. Hundreds of years of popular culture have vanished. Without the sacred films and texts for guidance, civilization is devoid of anything cool. Then, 3 incubation chambers are unearthed, and from within, men from the time of the great blockbusters emerge. Now, through highly interesting conversations, they share invaluable insight about what once was. The movies, the shows, the comics, toys, and books. This is
The Hyperspace.
Podcasting in the 25th century.
Welcome in, podcast pioneers, to the hyperspace. Podcasting in the 25th century, the interweb's first and only podcast. My name is Matt.
I'm Jared.
And I'm Mike.
Welcome back, Mike.
It's the three of us for the first time in a long time.
Just
It's true,
three of
actually.
us.
Yeah, it's the three of us. It's like, it's kind of like when Coy and Vance took over for Bo and Luke. And I don't know. I was trying to lead into our topic this evening, but that was a very clumsy and...
Well, it's almost as if, I just came back on the tube. And the tube on this podcast is quite the trope, isn't it?
The tube?
What are you
The
talking
tube.
about? It makes no sense whatsoever.
The tube. You're talking
It keeps
about
reappearing over and over.
where we live?
The tubes.
The tubes.
No.
Yeah.
You take the tube here and there.
Take
I don't know. I'm trying to find a 25th century trope that we can bring in. It's tropes, everybody. We're talking about
Nutrient
tropes.
paste. Unitards.
Nutrient paste. All that.
All that good
25th
stuff.
century tropes.
Yeah.
Yeah. We were kind of chatting privately. And we're just kind of saying, it would be fun. Let's talk about all those tropes that we grew up with in the golden age of entertainment.
Yeah, the TV and movie tropes, perhaps music tropes as well. We just sort of opened it up. We don't discriminate. Whatever tropes you like.
Any updates, folks, before we get to tropes?
Well, I'd like to thank Mike for turning me on to what has become my favorite YouTube channel, Space Ice. Every time I sit down, whether it's in the restroom or just sitting at the table or laying in bed before sleeping, I turn on Space Ice and I watch a new video, and it never fails to make me laugh.
Yes, it's amazing.
I completely just happened upon it. You know how it gives you the recommendations.
Yes.
And it started out watching the Steven Seagal. I mean, he has Steven Seagal's number.
Yes. That's right. Steven Seagal walks.
Because he's terrible. Well, the henchmen take Steven Seagal's double on a tour. But once they realize that he's not there, they call an Uber and have the real Steven Seagal come.
The police don't
man.
even chase him because they would be chasing his body.
So he does what he does best is murder innocent people.
Obviously, I mean, I'm sure both of you are the same way. I haven't seen a modern Steven Seagal movie ever.
No.
And, I some of the old ones weren't, I don't remember them being terrible when I was a kid, but I'm sure they don't hold up now. But listening to some of the dialogue in these moderns, he tries, I mean, I'm trying to figure out, is he trying to be a scumbag or is he trying to think he's a hero?
Your mistake is using the word try, because he's not trying.
Yeah, no.
It
Let's.
It's a classic just phoning it in.
Is he? Is the character that every character in every one of his modern movies trying to be is he supposed to be a hero?
No,
because he just
I
comes
think
off as being less creepy as hell.
Well, he's written most of these, and I think what we're really seeing is his worldview.
God, man,
Which means he is, in fact, a terrible person.
what a creep! What a creep!
We digress.
What a great channel, though.
Yeah, Space Ice. Check them out,
Yes.
please.
Also, before we begin, Kirstie Alley passed away, unfortunately, and I can't say that I kept up fondly with her career after Star Trek II, but I've got a lot of fond memories of Lieutenant Savick as a kid.
Oh,
And,
I just
it's
recently
always
watched
sad.
Village of the Damned with my son, and she's in that.
Village of the Damned. Was that with Christopher Reeve?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, too.
That was a good one.
I tell you another one.
forgot
The first Look Who's Talking is really funny, actually.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
she did like 18. Look Who's Talking.
But
movies.
the first one's her and John Travolta both are really good in that movie.
Then they started
Yeah.
to go down the path where the dogs were.
Yeah, I
talking
think
to
they were
each
like
other.
literally running it, like the soap dishes started talking to each other.
Yeah.
I mean, they just really
Nice.
ran out of
Well,
ideas.
I didn't realize she passed away in Tampa.
Oh well, she was a Scientologist.
That's true, and she lived in Clearwater for 22 years. And yeah, she was at a
she was
local
71. I could not believe she was 71. That blew me away.
Yeah, it's had colon cancer. So, sad thing.
So
but
she's a lot older
fond
than
memories
I thought
of-
she was. I thought she was.
fond memories. Oh, really? You thought she was
I thought she was
older-
younger. Yeah, I couldn't believe it.
Oh, I thought she was going to be older, to be honest. I was surprised to hear she was 71, but
Wow, Lieutenant Savick.
Yishun wala, ikbanu.
Wachriach Wickman Otlam.
Ishvengi, komi.
Winga Chlami Buffek Savekam.
Rest in peace, Savikam.
All right. So tropes.
Oh,
Tropes.
that's what we're talking about tonight. Tropes.
The trouble with tropes.
As we so elegantly tried to do it at the top of the show, perhaps, who's gonna, the shows and movies we watched growing up.
Well, I'm just hoping that we all are in agreement on what a trope is.
Okay, well
let's find out. I'll kick it off because I kind of thought up this topic. So
Okay.
let me kick it off, and you guys can
Yeah,
judge.
because I had a feeling if I started off, you guys would just like get quiet for a second and then go, "What
Okay,
are
let's
you?
not get
What are you
quiet.
talking
Okay, so check this out. So when I was a kid, there was a lot of I'm not talking about young. There was a lot of options on TV, right? And I remember watching a lot of. Do you remember the show Flipper?
yeah, the dolphin.
You know what Flipper
I
was?
remember it.
The
I never
dol-
watched it.
Flipper was like the Dolphin Lassie, right?
Sure.
Same kind of premise. And for some reason, maybe it was one summer, this was like always on in the morning. And it was always on TV, and I just remember watching it. And it's the first instance I kind of remember this happening, but ever since then, you would catch it all through the 80s. And that was Quicksand.
Oh, okay, yeah,
Okay.
So
yeah.
it seemed that I was convinced that at some point in my young life, I was going to get caught in quicksand.
You know, it's funny
Because-
you say that because there was a meme. Because I forgot about quicksand, but then someone made a meme that said, "In my youth, I thought the biggest danger in my life, based on TV, was going to be quicksand."
Yeah,
and it triggered
exactly.
that, like, oh my gosh, that's right. Quicksand was in everything.
Everything. Was it? I mean, I'm not wrong. It
No,
was in
no,
everything.
everyone at some point fell in quicksand. I think it happened like Arnold fell in some quicksand in the Central
Yeah,
Park or
I'm
something.
pretty sure even the Brady Bunch fell in quicksand.
I mean,
one time or
everyone
another.
was. I mean,
It was an epidemic.
and it was everywhere.
Quicksand was going to take your life, and you had to learn how to survive. Do you remember what you had to do to survive in quicksand?
Well, you had to have somebody pull you out.
yeah,
Well, you need somebody to pull you
someone
out.
throw you like a tree limb or something like that.
You had to lay flat and flutter to get out of it, or you get thrown a rope or something like that.
It was always.
But quicksand was in like everything. It was in everything.
Yeah, I think I remember there was a Dukes of Hazzard where they were in quicksand,
I no doubt.
I'm sure.
and it doesn't matter where you were. You could be in a different country in America, even in the city. Somehow you'd find a thing of quicksand.
I remember Never Ending Story.
Oh,
Yeah,
that terrible
Atreus.
scene.
Not Atreus.
God,
That's
Atreyu.
that's the character from God of War.
Artex and Atreyu.
That was the kid
Atreyu.
from Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Noah Hathaway.
Noah Hathaway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a terrible scene.
But you know what? That's what.
Artex went
If
down.
you look at, well, I don't want to get off tangent, but that was normal for kid movies. Some animal died.
Hey, another trope, perhaps.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Fair.
that's
Yeah. So quicksand, guys. It was gonna get you, and I watching TV and movies. You were next.
Dun, dun, dun.
But speaking
To
of
this
who's next?
to this day, I don't even know if quicksand is even real.
Is it a real?
I've never.
They used
ever
it in the new.
encountered quicksand.
They used it in the new Predator movie.
Did they?
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, Prey. They did. It was.
I mean, I guess it's real in some form or fashion, but I mean, I've never encountered.
We need to know more about it because it's a real threat. You don't want to be caught on the. Darn it! I saw all those movies about quicksand, and I don't know anything.
I
about
agree.
It.
I agree. Quicksand is.
All right. Well, I got a trope I'm gonna go with.
What do we got?
Not as broad, but it's something I see, and once I think I've seen it recently too. I don't think they do it as much, but the big thing was, anytime there was like a manhunt for someone, and they would bust into the person's house, and it was always like that person was just about to make some tea, because they'd be like, "Look, the water's still hot." He must have just left.
Oh yeah, I agree. No, you're right. You're absolutely right.
Or someone left here in a hurry.
Something was still on.
Yeah.
They're in the middle of their meal.
Yeah, and they took off. But whatever it was water, and they were having to boil it.
That's true.
I don't know what he was after. Maybe some eggs, maybe tea.
Yeah, that's a good one. That certainly.
I think I saw it in like an X-Files. I think they did it in Walking Dead, like in the first season when they were looking for Merle.
I'm sure.
Yeah, because I mean, it's still a valid. I mean, if you're doing some detective work, I mean, you got to see that kind of stuff sitting around,
and you got to be. I mean, if you think about,
and you have to discuss it, right?
What other
you have to call people in to discuss this, not to instantly recognize that he was or she was just here. You have to call everyone in and be like,
the water's still hot.
Water's still boiling.
The water's still hot. What's going on?
And before even that, it was the tea kettle. We'll go. Beep.
Oh yes.
So that's
knew. True.
They just missed him. Anyway.
Well, I think this is definitely a trope, but it's not as specific. But you guys have probably seen. I mean, if you watch TV in the 80s, sitcoms or whatever, there was always an episode that was the very special episode where
when the kids got touched.
Or it was about drug use or like somebody found grass.
And they always did. They always started up tonight on a very special episode.
Yes.
Although Blossom, every other episode was a special episode of Blossom.
Well, and they'd always have like parental discretion is advised. And I knew, like, if we sat down to watch Different Strokes or something,
oh my
and
gosh,
that popped
that's
up,
the classic. That's the classic
because
one.
We'd watch that as a family, and I was like, I have to get out of here.
When they went to get his friend, what was his friend's name?
Dudley.
And he didn't have a shirt on.
Oh, the Maytag repairman. Remember?
Is that who that was?
Yes.
He was like showing. Arnold got out of there. He was wise.
I remember that traumatized me, and I think perhaps kept me safe.
Oh, you know what? Say what you will. Stuff like that actually worked.
Well, stuck with you.
Well, yeah, because it did stick with you. Because I remember, like, specifically that episode of Different Strokes. Like, he was this cool guy who repaired bicycles. And all the kids loved him.
Man, Maytag must have been freaking out when he did that commercial. You can't do this.
I don't remember.
You can't do this.
This was.
He was
also.
You
said Silver Spoons.
No, it was.
Is that what show was this?
Different Strokes.
Different
with
Strokes.
Arnold.
I don't think I know I watched it, but I don't remember.
Well, he was also the boss of like WKRP in Cincinnati.
Oh, okay, he was on there.
Oh, yeah. I remember
man,
that guy.
What a role to have. To play.
So what's the story now? He was a bike repairman.
He was
what
a
happened?
bike repairman, and all the kids in the neighborhood loved him, and so
sure.
He actually lived in the back of the shop. He had a cool place. It had like video games and stuff. And he'd invite Arnold and Dudley back there.
What did he do? Was he showing them like dirty magazines or something?
He showed them like magazines. And like Dudley and Arnold are sitting around going, "Whoa!" Of course, getting cheap laughs off Gary Coleman going, "Whoa!" and stuff like that. And yeah, so
Arnold took off. He was not down with it.
No, he did, and
he went
his dad,
and they got Dudley's dad.
Yes,
and they went back.
And they flash forward to the hospital.
No, they went back to the guy's place, and when they went in,
But he was in his like tidy whities.
I think he was only missing his shirt. I think he still had his jeans on.
Oh man.
Yeah, that was like, whoa.
No, if they actually if you go on YouTube, there's a guy who goes he looks at all these very special episodes and you watch them and you're like, "Holy crap." And I remember another one, the first time I ever knew what marijuana was from Different Strokes, because Willis had a Ziploc baggie of grass.
I don't remember that one.
So I was like, I remember asking my mom, "What's grass?" And she's like, "Oh, it's a drug. It's bad. You shouldn't do it." And so that's, it was teaching me Different Strokes.
That's funny because I wasn't a big Saved by the Bell guy, but it always seemed to be on.
God,
do you remember the episode?
Ain't that the truth?
That was like a little past our time, really.
Yeah, but I remember they always make fun of an episode where one of the girls got like on some kind of caffeine pill.
Oh yeah, it was like gas station speed.
She had
taking.
There's some line where she freaks out that it's like.
Yeah. I'm so excited. That's what she kept yelling.
Oh, and it was the girl from Showgirls.
I worked with her actually.
Did she have her?
She was pretty great.
She was very nice. She gave me
awesome.
like a kiss on the cheek.
I had her sign my copy of Showgirls.
No, you didn't. Yeah, she was really sweet though. I remember
it was the shooting script.
I gave her a tour of the studios.
How tall is she?
Cool.
She looks like she's tall.
She was tall. She's
pretty tall.
At least almost 6 feet.
Well, that was the only thing about Saved by. I thought all three of those girls were like smoking hot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the black girl lost her mind.
Oh, did
Mark
she?
Voorhees.
Yes, she had some.
I guess she's come back around. She's found some medicine, but she lost it.
Yeah, there was a problem.
Man, that's a trope. That's good. That's the trope. That's the speed pills.
All right.
I'm gonna drop one on you that there's gonna be 1,000 examples of this one.
Okay.
All right. How about an unlikely group of rejects or nerds will rise up and win in the end?
Oh, that was like every movie in the 80s.
Yes.
Every movie.
Revenge of the Nerds, Up the Creek. I mean, you could just...
you keep it going. It just never stops.
Oh, well,
even Goonies.
I'm going to go into a trope from this trope. I didn't actually write down, but it reminded me of a trope. Go ahead.
It's like this was the go-to formula for 60% of the movies and TV shows that came out
no
in the
doubt.
70s and 80s.
And their goal was to get some action. That was...
Oh, and I have to tell you, when I was a kid, Revenge of the Nerds, listen, for you younger listeners out there, there was a time if every guy knew every movie that had some kind of nude scene in it, and you knew exactly where it was in the movie.
You heard about it at school.
Yes.
And it's like, this is what people talked about. At 33 minutes in, you knew something was going to happen in this movie. And Revenge of the Nerds was one of those R-rated comedies that if you were lucky enough to catch when your parents were in a different room or asleep, you were gonna be entertained in that regard. But that was that was like the ultimate group of nerds that, of course, get picked on and find a way to beat the
singular nerd.
Yeah,
Karate Kid.
Karate Kid.
Yeah,
there you go. Even though he was more of a punk than in retrospect, I kind of blame Daniel now for a lot of it after watching Cobra Kai. He might have to own up to some of this.
It's possible.
But yeah. So the trope of the nerds and rejects teaming up, or nerd or reject winning in the end.
Yes.
The lovable nerds.
I'm gonna go. It's Mike's turn. But I'm actually going to piggyback on what Matt said.
Well, I'm
Mike,
piggybacking too. And I think we've kind of touched on this before. I can't remember what we were talking about. But the whole nerdy girl ends up being hot.
Yes,
sure.
That was common all the time too. You always see that, like, oh my gosh, she's actually hot. And anybody who went to school knows there is no such thing as a hot girl ever going under the radar. If she was attractive, everyone knew.
Well, I'll tell you this.
Sure.
I did know girls that started like you wouldn't notice them in like middle school, but by the time they hit high school, they were completely.
Yeah, but I'm talking about there's
were
like,
hot.
you know, what they do. They did put the glasses on them, put them in nerdy clothes.
You're right. They didn't just go away for a weekend and come back and be
and
smoking
it was like,
hot.
I'm going to the dance, and they walk
Yeah,
in.
and at the dance, they look like a supermodel.
And you're like,
wait.
There is a great comedy movie, not another teen movie. It's called that makes fun of that a lot, and it's a funny movie. But you're right. It's like it didn't happen. It didn't happen.
that.
But you're right. It was all over. It was all over.
That was
Breakfast Club.
Yeah, Ali Sheedy.
Yes,
Ali Sheedy.
So that was definitely a major trope.
Oh, I agree.
How about casting 35-year-olds as high school bullies?
Oh man, it's so true.
Remember
every John Cusack movie.
Remember Teen Wolf? That guy was 42.
I don't remember. I've only seen Teen Wolf once. I don't remember who the bully was.
I mean,
I don't remember that. I don't think I ever saw him in anything else.
I
Maybe he
remember
was,
that guy, and I've watched Teen Wolf in the years since, and
Teen
he
Wolf.
still looks like older
than
me.
you.
Like, man, what? I thought maybe it's because I was a kid in middle school watching this
He's
stuff.
got the 5 o'clock shadow. He's supposed to be 15
Yes.
or something like that.
Well, I mean, Mike had a 5 o'clock shadow when he was 10, I'm sure. But no, it is funny if you look at these old movies, and even, you know, I think with the most, I think I made a joke of this in the most recent season of Stranger Things. I was like, Stranger Things has continued the trend of casting 35-year-old men as high school seniors, because Eddie, the guy who
even the jock that was after him.
Yeah,
seemed like he was, like,
those
in his
guys
late
were in their
20s.
30s. They just were. So, but that's something that was just everywhere back in those TV shows and movies.
Absolutely. All right, I've got one for you here. How about cars can jump and always be okay?
Yes.
Cars will jump. I mean, no matter what kind of jump they'll do, they will survive and you will drive off.
Yeah, we've talked about this a few times, but it bears
because they always cut away as a car hits the ground.
Oh, it's even better when they don't cut away and you see the entire axle break in half,
or the whole hood bend in half, and then the next scene is perfectly straight.
My favorite is what was it? Diamonds Are Forever. When Sean Connery's riding around in that little moon buggy thing, do you remember?
Yes.
And there's actually a shot where you can see one of the wheels roll off the thing.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I have to watch.
And they cut to another shot, and it's fine.
The wheel actually
were they so desperate to keep the film?
Yeah,
like,
you can see the wheel roll away.
Just keep it. Just keep it.
It rolls off, and you're like, "Oh, he lost the wheel." And they cut, and he's like, "Fine, all four is still there."
That's funny.
That's amazing.
Next time you watch, look for it.
Yeah. Well, you can, and I know rewatching Dukes of Hazzard and some of Knight Rider. Oh man, there's just it's all
like
kinds
Knight
of
Rider.
things.
Knight Rider. I mean, Dukes of Hazzard and Knight Rider probably are the worst offenders. But even in movies, like
sure.
you would see these car jumps, and anytime there was anything in San Francisco,
Going over
cars
that
were going to be
hill.
jumping those hills and then slamming down, but driving away fine.
Yeah, it's
But the cars jumping.
cars jumping, man. That's the turbo boost.
And you
though,
don't.
man.
I don't think you see it too much. You don't see that kind of trope these
No,
days. They kind of moved away
in
from
modern action movies. If cars do that, they generally get destroyed.
it. And they leave them destroyed.
Yeah, they do. They just like it's all part of the action, the way the action is shot these days. But yeah, there's no giant flying cars where they land and just keep on trucking. More's the pity. More's the pity. Man, it's the trope is back to me, and I'll tell you one, and I'm taking it back to again the 70s and 80s. They're usually in your favorite show. Someone would show up, a famous person playing themselves.
Oh gosh, that's right.
That would of course, I go immediately back to Different Strokes. Mr. T appeared on Different Strokes as himself, and Arnold got a mohawk and looked like a tiny Mr. T.
Right.
There was a run of I believe A-Team and Knight Rider indulged in this. I know Hulk Hogan was on like 3 or 4 either sitcoms or TV shows.
He was on the A-Team.
Hulk was?
Yeah.
He was buddies with Mr. T.
Yeah.
They had that thing going for a while. But yeah, there was
And by a while, I think you mean one episode.
Yeah, probably. But no, they were like partners for that whole WrestleMania where they were wrestling together. And,
exactly.
Funny enough, I saw this video. It was really weird, where Mr. T and Hulk Hogan were on the talk show of Richard Belzer, who is an actor. And
you haven't seen that before?
No, I hadn't seen it, and I just saw it recently. And Hulk put him in a sleeper and like knocked him out.
Well, Richard Belzer kind of like was like saying,
like, this is fake.
This isn't real, right? It's fake, right?
And Hulk put him to sleep, and like Mr. T got all pissed off at him, and it was all uncomfortable.
I've never seen this.
Yeah, look it up. It's Mr. T.
Well, what happened, Mike, is like watch it, and he puts him in a headlock, and he says, "Does this feel fake?" And he's just basically squeezed his arm and put him right out. He
put
right
Mr. T out?
No,
he put Richard Belzer.
Oh, Mr. T didn't like that he did that?
No, Mr. T.
Well, hold on. So what happened was, he's passed out in Hulk Hogan's arm. He's standing, and Hulk has him in a headlock, and then Hulk opens his arm and lets him go, and he falls down and smacks his head on the stage, passed out, and he stays there snoring. And then all of a sudden he wakes up and jumps up. But where you see he jumped up from, if you look, there's a pool of blood from where his head smashed in the ground. No, you watch it. It's really, and then you see Hulk, and Hulk is like petrified. Like, he's like,
how have I never heard of this?
You got to watch it. YouTube it. It's crazy. And it's just like, you'll see, if you don't look, you'll miss it, but there's a pool of blood where his head was. And he sued him. He sued Hulk Hogan for that.
Yeah, and Mr. T's mad at Richard Belzer because he thinks Richard's trying to make them look like fools. And so he's just, Mr. T's just like being a jerk.
Really?
It's really crazy.
It's very
crazy.
It's very uncomfortable. And
well, that's out of character, because Mr. T I've never seen him do anything where he comes across as a jerk.
Oh yeah.
Well, I mean, watch it. Watch his reaction. Watch Richard get passed out, bash his head open, and then jump up and go, "We'll be right back, folks!" And like he goes off, and he's like feeling his head and his blood all over the stage. You'll see. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, how's that for working wrestlers into talk show? I don't know.
Yeah, no, but that's true.
That's a good one, though.
Yeah, celebrities playing themselves.
That's fair. All right, I got one. Sure. I've got one for you. I guess it's kind of akin to the Quicksand epidemic. After watching countless shows growing up as a kid, I could have swore that at some point in my life that my car was going to be commandeered by a police officer.
Really?
Oh, they
because
they would stop you and say, "Hey,"
because they would in all these shows, "Stop! I'm commandeering this vehicle. Police business," and then continue whatever for whatever reason.
Police business.
And like cops would always steal people's cars.
Yes, they just go up and flash their badge and say, "Get out!
I'm commandeering this vehicle." And yeah, I just thought that, much like Quicksand, was just kind of a common occurrence.
Yeah, that's. I mean, you're right. In a lot of those shows of the era, that definitely happened. Mike, do you have another trope here?
I did, and I just lost it. Hold on, let me see if that comes back.
Come on, you can do it.
This is another one from the TV show. Now, this was like, now we see like shows, this before streaming and home video, episodes were like isolated. The stories were isolated per episode.
Yes.
And I always hated it. Sorry. I always hated it when they'd bring in a character. It was maybe like a love interest or someone, and you'd be like, "Oh, this is an interesting character," and then after that episode, you never saw them again. They were gone.
Never. To keep it, so they could keep it contained.
Like the characters never changed. They were always the same, and that always felt like there would be some, like an uncle would come on or something like that, and you're like, "Oh, this is a great." Like, what was it? I will say, Tom Hanks was a reoccurring character on
Family Ties.
Yeah, he was like the uncle Wasn't he an
So he
alcoholic?
had some he was an alcoholic.
Yeah,
or,
he was
or a
always
drug
in
addict.
But he
or
came
something.
back. I think he came back a couple of times.
Remember, he hit Michael J. Fox in one of the episodes, and it was like one of the
Was that
it was one of the very special
episodes.
special episode? Anyway,
I don't know what I'm doing.
but I'd always hate it when they would introduce a character and then, you know, they just you never saw him again. They just
They gave you a lot of like emotional vesting in that character, and then he's gone.
Yeah.
Or she's gone.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Here's one that's kind of timely as we record this. Every show in the 80s always had seasonal episodes. You'd either have a Halloween episode or a Christmas episode without fail. Like, you take your pick, you know. I mean, even Star Trek, the original series, had a Halloween episode. It's called Cat's Paw.
written by Richard Bloch.
Yeah, Robert Bloch.
Robert
the
Bloch.
author of Psycho. And but that was something that it's always funny, like during my Dukes of Hazzard rewatch, I'd always come across once a season there would be a Christmas episode. And you know, one of them was I don't know, it was called, I think, The Ghost of the General Lee or something.
Oh, I think I remember.
Or maybe this was a Halloween episode, but
That sounds more Halloween.
yeah, it was. But there was one episode. It was a Christmas episode where actually, like, everybody gathered at Uncle Jesse's house. I mean, Boss Hogg, Roscoe, all the enemies, they broke bread together, and and at the end of the episode, Boss Hogg, like, a tear comes to his eye because everybody's being nice to him. And I was like, man, it's like one of the few instances of genuine drama in the whole series. I'm like, that's a kind of a nice moment. Of course, it's instantly forgotten the week following because, once again, they're just chasing the Dukes and putting them in jail and everything else. Yep. So, but yeah, all shows of that era, they would have.
Well, you know what?
Christmas.
I remember on top of that, you'd see the ads for especially the Halloween one, and the ads would kind of play it up like, this week, is there a ghost living in the so-and-so family's house? You know, like there's really going to be some supernatural factor to it or something like that.
Well, you know what? Maybe that's a trope too by itself. That kind of like that preview at the end of an episode that, you know what I mean, that they used to tack on for next week.
Oh, that itself is a trope where you'd get next time on Knight
next
Rider.
week.
Yeah. And they give you the little trailer.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes it seems like they still do that. Sometimes, I mean, I'm thinking specifically right now, The Walking Dead, because they would do like next week. Here are scenes.
Yeah, but I think that's a little different because they actually kind of like they make those separate pods almost. Well, I don't know. I guess maybe it's the same. Who knows? It's just
they put it like over the end credits.
Picture in picture.
Yeah, they picture in picture the credits and go next week on The Walking Dead. And but so they still do that to some degree, but. Like, back in the day, they would full-on just ruin the whole episode. Yeah. It would be like, Michael Knight goes to the county fair and gets in a race and wins.
And wins.
And it's like, hey, well, if I miss it next week, at least I know what happened.
Yeah. That was...
You know what? I've got one. How about in the 80s? You know, computers were new.
Sure.
You know, in the 80s.
Oh, my gosh.
I know where you did.
And how about computers were uncontrollably powerful.
They could do anything.
And could do everything in movies.
You name it. A great example is Superman 3.
Sure, Superman 3, My Science Project.
Even like Ferris Bueller.
Weird Science, Weird Ferris Bueller. Yeah. Tron.
Yeah.
I mean.
Like computers that functionally we are still 100 years away from today. These computers are, you know,
they would control cars and stuff like that, even though there's like no internet.
And all you'd be doing is like clicking the keyboard. It's like, okay, I'm in. I've got it.
Here's a good trope after this one.
And if you had a modem, you could hack into anything.
Oh, yeah.
Without any experience, you can get into everything.
Yeah, of course.
Everything was available.
You know, and like you said,
change your grades.
Oh man, I think Tron was probably the most egregious because that was just like, what the, there's a gun that turns you into digital information.
Well, that's a concept you're never, ever, ever going to be able to sell realistically.
No, like you physically remove the person from the real world and put them inside where they drink strange liquid from their frisbees.
The shame soup.
You're a user.
Yes. Wait,
I did like the follow-up, though. The sequel was pretty great.
Oh, gosh, it was. It was really good.
Yeah,
but,
definitely.
But to follow up on both of those is the security camera footage where they're able to zoom in on license plates.
Yeah.
And you're like, anyone who works a video knows, no.
Or even just
that would be a bunch
video,
of blocks, like a different
a security camera that's almost like a Steadicam following them around.
But like when they just like, can you get a fix on that license plate number? And like, no,
Enhance.
I can't, because it would just be like black and white and gray squares.
Yeah, it would be a fuzzy blob of crap. And that's something else too. This kind of goes along with that. When I remember in Knight Rider, Kit. Michael would watch everything on a little screen inside Kit, and he'd be like, "Kit, can you get me a look inside that building?" And he's like, "Stand by, Michael." And then it would just like, there'd be a grid pop up, and all of a sudden he's watching like a single camera sitcom,
in a wood paneled room with people in really bad suits.
Yes, and it's like, man, that's some great camera work for not even having a camera in there.
Well, I remember when they gave, I guess it was when the show was starting to falter in ratings, so they gave Kit an upgrade. And he was like, he was even able to do even more ridiculous stuff. Like he was able to
I think that's after he got wrecked.
Yeah, he got wrecked, and he had those stupid brake flaps that popped up that slowed him down.
The car expanded, and
no, it's these really crappy flaps. They just popped up, and they were real flimsy looking.
The hood extended out. It was bad.
But at one point, he was able to like track footprints in the sand. Like, Michael, they walked over there. I'm like, how do you know? You're not. You're not.
Finally, you're not believing the show. You're like, this is it.
You're not Davy Crockett. I mean, what is going on here?
Davy Crockett. And I remember what you just grabbed onto, Mike, was another trope, and that's when a series is in decline, they introduce new things to try to keep you invested in the show. The Knight Rider thing was a good example, and I think there's
jumping the shark.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. With Happy Days, that's where that phrase came from. They were running out of ideas, so Fonzie was going to water ski over a pond with a shark in it, and so that's where the whole jumping the shark trope came from. And
by the way, while you're talking about the jumping the shark and Fonzie, I read up on that at one point because I was interested to see what was going on in that awful show, and at that point, and Fonzie, when he was younger, was quite an accomplished water skier, and he had come to the writers, and because they were struggling to find what they want to do, and he said, "Listen, I'm an amazing water skier."
You mean Henry Winkler said this?
Henry Winkler, yeah, and he's like, "Let's get a episode focused on Fonzie water skiing because I can do that," and they thought that was a great idea, and built that around his jumping the shark.
Well, here's another trope.
Yes.
The backdoor pilot.
Oh, yes. Man, pretty much every show had one.
And the worst backdoor pilots are the ones that never get made. Because it's literally an episode. I remember there was one of Charles in Charge where he went to visit his mom who ran a car wash. And, of course, all her employees were these quirky characters. And Scott Baio's in it for like 2 minutes, and you're like,
maybe this will be a spinoff.
Yeah, and it almost seems desperate. I tell you, the worst one was remember when they did the one with Dwight and his family? I think it was the last season of The Office.
The Office.
It was I hate the last 2 seasons of The Office. As far as I'm concerned, are garbage.
They're terrible.
I hate them. They are awful.
Oh, they were so outrageous.
Once Steve Carell left the show, forget about it. So, but they did this episode where it was Dwight with his family, And all of a sudden, you know, he had, what was it? Was that his brother or his cousin?
I think it was his cousins.
But he suddenly had a sister who had kids. And the whole...
They're like Amish or something? Or
no, they're just... They're
just weirdos?
They're just all a bunch of weirdos. And it's so lame because you could just tell they're but
testing it to see what the reaction is. And
I think they've denied that was a backdoor, but there's no way you can watch that episode and not be like, no, that was a backdoor pilot if I ever saw one.
No. Yeah. I mean, can you... So there is one that I can think of right now, and that's when they did the Incredible Hulk TV movies where they brought in Thor and then Daredevil.
Oh, were those attempts to spin off?
They were going to see if they could make actual TV shows with those characters. Of course, it did not. It didn't land. And anybody who, it's pretty funny if you go back and watch. I specifically remember I recorded the Thor Hulk TV movie, The Incredible Hulk Returns. I had that on VHS for many years. And when I was a kid, I thought it was pretty cool. But it doesn't really hold up today. But that
I've seen that. I've seen some of the clips recently.
Oh yeah,
it's just
it's very interesting.
No kind of good.
But those were attempts to do that, and they did that in another. Well, I mean the backdoor pilot and the spinoff can kind of hold hands here. There was, of course, Enos spun off from the Dukes of Hazzard, and
of all the characters.
Well, he was really popular. I don't know if you remember that, but when that show was on, Enos was real for whatever. Because I just remember him being really popular. And
but he can't hold.
Well,
a show.
I remember when he got his
main character.
We watched it when he got his spinoff. We watched the first couple episodes. I mean, it wasn't good, and they brought him back to the show.
Yeah, like
but
they set it up in the show itself. They were like, hey, you know, Enos, he's going off to California, you know. And I think Uncle Jesse and Daisy actually appeared.
Daisy did for sure.
On Enos, okay.
I don't know about Jesse, but I know Barbara Bach did for sure.
Catherine, yeah. She, but...
I'm getting names all mixed up today.
That's okay. But, you know, the spinoff, like, I can't remember what show holds the record, but I think it's All in the Family.
It may, yeah, that's right, because the Jeffersons was a spinoff.
Jeffersons,
Maude.
And what else? I don't think Good Times was a spinoff, was it?
It was a spinoff, but it was...
Good Times?
Yes, it was a spinoff.
I think it might have been a spinoff from something else. But
no, it was. Because the mother was someone's maid.
Yes. Those kind of things.
All in the Family. It was a spinoff of All in the Family.
Another one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow. Yeah, that's crazy.
So they just kept.
And then they did a show with the daughter. What's her face? After this,
Gloria.
Yes, she went on.
That show made some hay, man. That show was all over the place.
Yeah. And then Archie Bunker, All in the Family became Archie Bunker's place because Edith left the show. But that was just like a petri dish of spinoffs.
But you know what? If you think about the poor people, because remember Alice Flo got her own show.
Oh yeah.
With Mel. Hey, Dingy.
Yes. Yeah.
Flo, Kiss My Grits.
Yes.
She got her own show. But these shows, it's like they'd have them leave the show. Their show would get canceled, and then they were like gone.
Yes, like they couldn't come back.
Yeah, it was like, I mean, to me, if I was a character and they offered me a spinoff, I'd be like,
okay,
I'll
give it a shot.
I'm gonna stay where I'm at, because if that doesn't work, I'm out of a job.
Not a good track record.
But you remember they did that on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., where they had those two characters. They were supposed to get their own show. It was
I don't remember that.
They did a big spin-off. They did a big episode where it was their last episode. They had to go basically
I gave up
lose
on that
their
show.
identity. And it didn't even get past the pilot.
Oh, wow.
It was
Man, yeah.
I gave up on that.
The spinoff, but that was definitely something very prevalent back in the old days.
Yeah.
Well, Walking Dead has about 80.
Oh, now they do. Which I told Mike, the finale held for me very little suspense because I knew pretty much the entire cast was being spun off into their own series.
Yeah.
So I'm like,
there's no.
Okay.
Is anyone going to die? Who's going to die?
Yeah. Well, whoever doesn't have a show coming up, I guess they're on the table. But
also, I just want to throw this out there: Tales from the Walking Dead is total garbage. Just want to say that.
I tried a few episodes. I stopped.
It's
yeah. I got 2 in.
It gets worse. It gets worse. It absolutely gets worse.
Mike stuck with it.
How about speaking of horror and stuff like that? How about the classic trope of the dumb teenager?
Oh man,
I mean, it's just out to
ubiquitous. That's everywhere.
Be dumb and have sex and get killed.
Well,
and not listen to anybody.
Well, I mean, you don't have
really
a
bad
movie
choices.
if you don't have those kind of characters. But yeah, that's a great trope. I mean, it's what sets half of these stories into motion.
Well, you can't have a character who's smart because in the movie, I think there's something in that house.
Let's just keep driving past this house. We can make.
I'm going to call the police.
Yeah, we should get out of here. No,
it's like that.
There's enough gas to keep going.
Like
just keep going. You don't need to stop at that house in the field.
What's the Eddie Murphy joke about why there's no horror movies with black people? Well, it's a beautiful house, nice area, nice place to live.
The haunted. They don't stay in haunted houses.
Get out. Too bad we can't stay.
Well, too bad we can't stay. Yeah. The tropes. We could go on forever with the tropes, but it's funny how maybe it's just because it's more prevalent because back when we were kids, you didn't have streaming and entertainment quite at your fingertips, and the amount of entertainment was a lot more limited that you could watch, and so maybe it was more apparent when things popped up.
Yes.
Because there's so much now with streaming and the amount of content that's made these days is insane compared to like when we were kids.
Oh my gosh. I mean, all the shows that are on now, it's ridiculous.
And I was thinking about that. We talk about some of the gems of our youth, and I can only think that there's a lot of good shows that are being produced, a lot of content. So maybe when my kids are my age, they'll be looking back at all this massive content, and maybe they'll pick 5 or 6 shows out of the thousands that they watched as like superstar, like diamonds in a sea of diamonds.
Yeah.
But it's just so much. So I don't know if tropes are going to be as apparent,
I think we have all new tropes.
Yeah.
Like a real quick one. I mean, I know we're wrapping up, but a real quick one I have thought of was the episode starting with the ending, and then cuts to 36 hours earlier.
Yes,
that just happened in a movie I saw.
Yes, that's. I think Mike, you were telling me not too long ago. You're like, there's a Walking Dead or something that did that. You're just like, just give me a linear story. Stop this crap.
You get like a guest director come in and they want to be clever, and it's like, oh god.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're right. It's as for what, like my daughter, she hasn't like latched on to anything, like we did because of, like I said, because
that's
of
all we
the
had.
Amount. Yeah, the amount. I mean, we had 3 channels, 4 if you were lucky, and that's
Blockbuster to rent a movie on the weekend.
Yes. And now, like the entire recorded history of
Shotgun
entertainment
blast.
is like right here. So, but anyway, you know what? That's those are the joys and the perils of living in the future, as we are doing now. And the tropes of Matt or Mike, if you come to my tube and I am shirtless in tidy whities, please help me.
Hey, that guy hasn't done any work on your bicycle.
Silence. Oh, man. All right. Well, it's good to be back together. We're going to try to get a few more shows out here during the holidays before we take a little break. But thank you guys for joining us. What tropes do you like? Leave us a comment on the YouTube channel or send us an email. talk about tropes. Like, what's a trope? Is there podcast tropes? I don't know. Probably.
Probably.
Oh, yeah. Of course. So, come back to us. Let us know. And thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.
You know you can't live without this content, so subscribe to the Hyperspace Podcasting in the 25th Century. Follow us on social media, leave us a review, and join us next time as we take you into the 25th century.